Thank you guys so much for having me. I tell you, the devil's been working this morning and he's not very happy. I figure I want to make Jesus smile today, so if there's anything that he could have made all these old injuries in my breathing and all of that stuff that he could make me try to not come today, it's been on trying to keep me from here. So praise Jesus that I made it and I'm here. I thank you guys for having me. So I love how Jesus moves because, like, I told Kelly I wanted to play Honey on the Rock, and she's like, "Well, we play that a lot," and I was like, "Well, I just want to play it." So while he was playing, my message for you guys today is going to be on staying on the rock. So that's what God's put on my heart, because if anyone knows or has went through some struggles, even recently, very recently, of staying firmly planted on that rock, it's been me. It's just, we're safe in here. We're comfortable. We're here, and we're in his presence right now. I just feel it. I hope you guys feel it too. It's a comforting. But when we walk out that door after Sunday church or prayer group, that's when the challenges come. That's when it can be harder to stay on that rock. So I really experienced some things. I think it was Wednesday. I'm going to read a message that I sent to Pastor Terry in just a little bit to you guys, is why God put it on my heart to come up here and speak to you guys on staying on the rock. So how God moves, though, is a honey on the rock. Whenever we were praising to it, he spoke to me and said, "Well, you can't get the honey from the rock if you're not on the rock."
Amen.
Right? So I want to speak with you guys real quick. I want Renee, Kaylin, Wanda, Kelly to come up here for a minute. This is my honey.
No.
I'm going to shed a couple tears, so just ignore that. This is the honey that I received. And Beth Ann, come on, too. These are my sisters that have helped me from the very first time that I came to Jesus, back to Jesus. All right, I think I'm going to only shed a couple, so maybe I won't need that. I can't tell you the hard days. I want to quit. I'm not a good Christian. This ain't for me. I don't want to live anymore. There's been those calls. And they always pull me right back to God and to what his word is. And that love is something that I'm so thankful for. And I want you guys to have that, and I encourage you. God wants us to have those healthy Christian relationships. So I love you guys. Thank you for coming here. I just want you to know that's the kind of things that we do in our discipleship, in our prayer groups, in our flag team, is we love on each other so that when we do have those hard times, you have someone to reach out to. You are not alone, and God doesn't want us to be alone. That's what church is. So I wanted to just bring acknowledgement to that. And I do want to say, sometimes I've been told in some of my testimonies that I can be a little insensitive as far as some of the things I've been through and how I word things. So if there are little ones in here, I would say probably under the age of 12 or 11. I'm just saying, I try very hard not to say anything that might offend them, but I feel that it's better if I've learned from some of my other testimonies that I should just say that. So I just wanted to let you guys know. All right, so in order to give the testimony about staying on the rock, I really feel like I need to go back and I got my mom's permission. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about how it started, about some of the generational stuff. And I've really prayed on this for God to open the ears to receive what I have to say that's for you, and to help me say the things that are needed and not overtalk, because sometimes I've been known to overtalk a little bit. So I'm going to try not to do that. First, let's see. I see some new faces in here that I haven't really had a chance to get close with. Some of you have heard some of my story. You know that I've survived some different things, so I'm trying not to be repetitive. But for those of you that haven't had a chance to get to know your name or to love on you, I want to say I'm Jenny, and I care, and I'd like to talk with you. So if anything in my testimony does touch you and you want to talk, I'm always here. You couldn't really see it that good, but I do have my recovery group. I've kind of taken a little hiatus for a few weeks, but I'm ready to get that started either online and back in person. It's on Thursdays at 6:30, so you're welcome to come there. I'm actually transitioning it from recovery, just substance abuse, over to whatever. We're recovering from grief, we're recovering from trauma, we're recovering from feeling alone. Whatever you're struggling with, you're not alone, and that's what this group's kind of going to transition into. So you're welcome to come for that too. All right. Sorry, I just write. I'm not a good little bullet point. So we're getting to mom's life. So for my life, for you to understand, I just want to take it back for a minute. I would like to say, I'm not ashamed of where I came from. And sometimes that's hard to say because it was a mess. It was a mess. Not necessarily just where I came from with my mom, but from my grandparents, that generational stuff. Not ashamed. I forgive. I love. I've learned from it. I'm not angry, and I hope I don't, because maybe this may be recorded and it may get out to people that may be offended, but this is my perspective. This is my story. This is how it affected me. My mom was the 8th child of 11, and my grandparents were very much addicts. I don't know so much for substances, but alcoholics. My grandfather was a coal miner in West Virginia. My grandmother, I don't even know the story of how they met or anything. To be honest with you, my grandfather died when I was 5, and my grandmother actually had left my mom when she was 7, so she's the 8th child. So there's probably about 5 or 6 children in the house. My grandma up and left. There was a step-grandmother that came in, and that's the grandmother that I know, and I love her, and there's been struggles there too, but I love her and I forgive, and we have a very healthy, good relationship. So there was a lot of fighting, there was a lot of alcohol abuse, there was a lot of sexual abuse, it was a mess. I just learned a few months ago, not even 2 months ago, that my mom told me she didn't know Jesus growing up, that they didn't talk about God, and I guess I always assumed because I knew him, but she didn't know Jesus. She found him. The siblings started going, and when my grandpa went and found out they wanted money, they quit going. So there was no foundation. There was no rock there from the get-go. So here's my mom, maybe about 14. All the older siblings got out as quickly as they could. So my mom ended up, just short story, there's a lot of domestic violence, all that. Mom ended up getting pregnant at 15. And my grandparents, my step-grandma, basically told her, she was very wild, a lot of partying, a lot of promiscuity, all of that stuff, already on drugs and alcohol, said if you are going to be living like that, which now I understand, but back when I was younger I didn't understand, you're going to either sign him over and we're going to keep him, or you're going to take him and we ain't going to help you, is basically what I was told. So she signed him over. She did. She lived with a lot of regret and shame about that, because here I come, when she's 18, she has me, and so she keeps me. So there was a lot of issues there and shame and guilt. So we move on, we live a life. I'm not going to get into it too deeply, but I will tell you that my mom was a wonderful mom. I've heard people say before, you can't be a good parent if you're on drugs or alcohol. And that kind of bothers me, but it's true. It's true. It's true. I don't want to accept that it's true, because I feel like my mom was a wonderful mother. I was clean. I was fed. I had a roof over my head. I had those things. I had love. But because of, and I believe it leads down that generational stuff, because of the issues with communication and trauma, and, there was a lot of times that there was too much partying, and it just led back down to, by the time that I was a teenager, I was running away. I was on drugs. I was on alcohol. I was promiscuous. I was seeking comfort and love and all the wrong things. And I didn't know. I didn't know any better. I really truthfully thought that I was leaving home to get away from the chaos. What I didn't realize is I was just building that same cycle, that same routine. So by the time that I was 17, I was addicted to meth, cocaine, hallucinogenics, alcohol horribly. I was in an abusive relationship where he also sexually assaulted me when I didn't want to. It was rough, and I'm talking about the rough stuff, but I've had a lot of good stuff too, because I have these times where I succeeded. I graduated high school. I played sports. I was a cheerleader. I did a lot of things that are wonderful things that built the foundation, So I think it wasn't until, so I'm going to fast forward just a little bit. I'm seeing here. So all of these mental health issues, that's one of the things I wanted to get to. Poverty, since I told you about substance and alcohol, promiscuity, self-harm and suicidal thoughts. I've probably been institutionalized 4 times. Some of you don't know that about me. 2 times when I was before I was 18, and then once when my first husband left me. That was really hard. So it comes down to not being on the rock. I'm going to get back to that. I didn't have that firm foundation, and but I had those seeds. I had the seed. I went to church when I was little. I kept going back to different churches. Christ Central, their youth program was amazing. Not even going to lie, that's what built me back up. Even at my teenage years, I was going in and out of institutions, but still going to church. It was building me up. And then something happened. I would say when I met my husband, I'll just be honest, some of you guys know my husband's in prison. I used to be very secretive about it, not talk about it. It was just a whole mess from fear of judgment and things like that, but I'm open about it now because the truth is, he's the reason I'm clean right now. You want me to be honest? I fell back into all of that, drugs, alcohol, promiscuity, and I met him and I went to a visit. I was drunk when I went to the prison. I don't know how I got past the guards. Thought it was funny, I guess. And he looked me dead in the eyes. We'd already been talking a couple months, and he said, Jenny, if you're going to be acting like this and doing this, you can get up and leave and never come back. He said, because I've already lost enough to drugs and alcohol. And at that time, I knew he was serious. And I looked into the eyes of a person that finally held me accountable. I wasn't the one begging someone to get clean. I wasn't the one saying what you're doing's hurting me. So that was December 26, 2017. And that's the day I made him a pinky promise that I would never use hard drugs again. Now, with that said, define sober. I really can't say I have a sober date yet because I dug into alcohol really hard for the next few years. And then I had injuries, so I still would take pain medication, but I wouldn't snort it. Since that day, I've not done a hard drug. I'm not snorting anything. And to me, that's big wins. That's part of the staying back on the rock, It's like layers. Who's watched Shrek? When he's talking about the layers of the onion? That's an analogy I like to use because some people, they get saved or they get clean and they throw it all down and it's wonderful. Praise Jesus. But for me, it was a layer after a layer after a layer, and I still believe I have a lot of layers. I think we're always working on some layer, So it just recently, I hadn't told many people about this victory. I don't know the exact date, but I'm a little over 2 months off of smoking cigarettes.
Yes.
And I didn't want to say anything because I've done this several times, the back and forth 8 days, 10 days. This is the time. This is the time that I'm going to make Jesus happy, and I'm going to be a good role model, and I'm going to be sober off of those kind of things too, so that when I run this group, God's been working on me. No one came to my group for like a year, you guys. It's been, but I'm like, God, I know you got me on this group. I know you got me on it, but I've learned and I've grew and I'm preparing, so I see the growth. So I'm saying all that and getting to this. I'm not trying to keep it too long and drawn out, you guys, but so you can see the struggle and see where I've come through. So get with my husband, start working on getting clean, all kinds of struggles and things back and forth. Well, I was working this job. You guys know the first time that I lost my job, where I was working at the Head Start, that kind of messed with me for a little bit. But God provided for every bill, whether I was cleaning a house, whether I was counseling someone, whatever I was doing, God provided for every bill. And then I got a job working in child welfare. And I was like, oh, this is me, because I've always wanted to help people. I know God's pulled me through the things he has so that I can help people. I know that without a doubt. But I never realized how damaged I am. And so I got that job at child welfare. Thought it was wonderful, went through you go through like 4 months of an extensive trauma training. And then you start going into these homes.
And every home that I went into, there was a little Jenny. Or there was somebody that was one of my friends as parents, or, every little thing started tearing me apart. And it brought back memories. This is going to be one of the things. I remembered my mom being raped and me hearing it, that I had suppressed. And I remembered what it was like to be in the homes where my mom was fighting for her life. And I was just a little girl in a room in the dark. It just started, I remembered wondering why my mom wanted to party instead of stay home with me. And I remember it started bringing back whenever, I'm not going to go too deep more into that, but I remembered when I was little, when my mom would tell me she was going out, I'd tear everything off the walls. And I was like Tasmanian devil. I didn't care if I was getting my butt beat. So you going to stay home to beat my butt? I would scratch my legs up, pull my hair out at 8 and 9 years old. And no one ever sat me down and said, why? Why are you acting like this? I went through counseling. No one ever talked to me about it. It was because I was going through so much. I didn't know how to tell anyone how I felt. I was tremendously terrified that when my mom went out, she wouldn't come back. I wasn't only abandoned by the sperm donor. I was abandoned by the person I called my father. The person I called dad was abusive to my mom, and the day they got divorced when I was 18 was the best day of my life. Because there was no more waking up to somebody screaming and throwing things, and it was just, I realized at this job that my life was in shambles, and I had just, you push it down, and you push it down, and you keep fighting, and you get up, and you keep going, and at some point, it comes back, and you better be ready. So I thank God for that job. I hated it when I felt like such a failure when I had to leave, and I quit. I just couldn't take it. But if it weren't for that job, I would not have realized I really needed some deep, deep, deep healing. And that's what I started doing. I started really digging into I still had my training books, so I started digging into the stuff we went through to ask myself and to remember things from when I was 3 and when I was 8 and when I was 10, and it all started coming together and making sense. And I'm like, well, surely now, if I've walked all this walk and I realize all this, I know there's others. I'll tell you something else. The walk with Daughters of Mercy. We worked through I miss it so much. I know it was a season. I know I always say it, but it really helped us have an hour a week together where we could work through some of this stuff that you don't talk about to other people in a nice, secluded group of sisters. So it was very nice. It was much healing. So I started healing and thought I was good. And woo, we got a job at the school. And I was so glad. I'm like, art, yes, art teacher, working with these kids that I can help because I know I've been through what they've been through. And I thought I was healed, and I thought, and I get to teach them about God. I was like, God put this in my life. I know it. And I started working at the school, and I just started realizing that I still have a lot of issues. It wasn't the kids' fault. I just was not ready to take that on, and it hurt so bad because I wanted to be there, and so I left it feeling like a failure. And they were so good to me, and I still see them students, and they run to me. I literally, they knew I was going through stuff. I tried not to overshare, but they knew that I told them it's not you guys, it's me. It's just not for everyone, but I know how God moves. Kelly's the art major, and she ended up being able to move into that position. And I don't know if she would have tried to come to the school if I wasn't there. That's how God shifts pieces perfectly sometimes, and when we don't see it. So I'm going to fast forward right now to last week. And what happened was, whenever I left the school, I took another hiatus and started working on healing. Oh, God's got me. I'm going to heal. He's going to pay my bills. And he did. I applied for about 21 jobs. Of the 21, there were 3 that were almost just alike, that I really liked, that fit the markers of what I need. I'm like, I'm gonna stay away from helping people for a little bit of that emotional, deep counseling kind of stuff. Well, the job I wanted, I was sick. And somehow, and I internalize stuff too. So when I'm sick, I have to say, am I sick? Am I really sick? Or, and I know it might not make sense to some of you, but I will internalize to where it'll make me physically sick. And it's a habit, it's a mental, I don't know. But I was very sick, and I put the date in the calendar wrong for my interview, and it was the job I really wanted. So I stopped following up on all those applications, those other 20. And they all just faded away, and they didn't call it, because I knew God has this job for me. And the day came of the interview that was not in my calendar. And when the lady told me, you missed your interview and you don't get another chance to interview, all those feelings of failure came back, because I failed a lot of jobs throughout my substance abuse and mental breakdowns. So I'm like, well, you know what, God? I thought that was the job you had for me. I said, you know what? I think I'm a good Christian. This is too hard. This is too hard. And so I'm going to read you what I wrote to Pastor Terry, because that day I said, God, can't do this anymore. I'm hurt, I'm damaged, I'm not going to heal all the way. But through it all, every morning I still got up and read my devotion. Me and my mom started reading the devotion, reading the Bible, listen to a worship song, and try to reach out to one friend or church event. I try to do it like every day, at least several times a week, through even the day. So sometimes we ain't going to have motivation. We're not going to want to do it. You're not going to feel like doing it. You're actually, more days than not, you're probably not going to want to, because the enemy wants to keep you down off that rock. He used my mind and that worthlessness and that pain. You're not going to ever do it. You're just a poor old girl. Trauma, drug addict, whatever, those thoughts start coming back if you give it just you get off the rock a little. And I like to use the analogy of being on the rock. I think about water. If you're on the rock in the water, right? And it's sturdy, and you're at a good foundation. So imagine the water flowing around you, and you're cool. But I don't know if it's that you get bored, or that our flesh kind of makes us like, oh, here comes a pretty flower. Let me go over here and get this flower. And now I'm off the rock. So now I'm vulnerable, right? Or here comes a raft, right? Here comes this inner tube that done floated down that somebody lost up the river. Oh, look at this inner tube. That'll be fun to ride. And get up on the inner tube. Floating away, splashing in the water. It's fun over here off the rock. But then the inner tube goes flat. So then what, you have to swim up current now to get to the rock and get back on that rock. So my analogy really on staying on the rock is to share with you guys how much I know we struggle every day with help. Annette, me and her were talking. My mom's not here today. Hurting, pain, whatever the enemy can use to try to keep us off that rock, he's gonna do. So we're not always gonna be motivated. That's why we need discipline. That's why you have to have that habit. You have to make yourself pull through those negative thoughts and tell yourself, I'm taken captive of you, and I am not an addict anymore. I am not worthless. I am not fat. I am not lazy. I am gonna do this, and I'm gonna claim victory in Jesus. And this is my plan. This is His plan for my life, and you're not gonna keep me from it. But that day, I was not feeling like a good Christian. And I wrote Pastor Terry this message. Pastor Terry, I want to thank you for your prayers. I've been doing my very best to stay in God's presence throughout these last weeks and months, and it has been a ride for sure. I have fought many mental battles and been tormented by my own sins and fleshly desires. Yesterday I had a mini breakdown. I admitted to God that I was angry at Him, and it instantly made me feel separated from Him. I was so distant, and it felt so overwhelming. I felt defeated. I've been checking off the boxes. I've been trying to go to church. I've been trying to pray. I've been reading the Bible. I've been doing worship. I've been listening to my music, But I was somehow missing the intimacy with God that I once had. You can check the boxes off and not be close to God. you can be on fire for God and not know the words of the Bible sometimes. I'm not saying you should, but if you got that love of God in you, you do need to get in the Word. But I've seen people, myself, I feel like I have the love of God in me. I'm learning the Bible and I'm putting more effort towards it now. But I've seen people that can recite the whole Bible and not have an ounce of love in them and not go by what it says, you know. I said I felt defeated and even said that the Christian life is not for me and I can't do it. It was revealed to me how much anger I still carry and anger towards myself. That's what I'm really angry at myself for not. I don't even know why I'm angry at myself, but I am. I've been working on my anger. I said, so for so many reasons, for so many things, change can be so challenging. Staying on that rock is so hard. Yesterday was the day that I felt all of my mental struggles more than I have in a really long time. But I did not feel suicidal. But I was right there at that spot before those thoughts. You know, I felt negative. I knew it was not of God, the feelings I was having. But that old way of thinking came about. So I pushed through it. I see my growth, God, I said, but God. I see my growth because even in my distance and my anger and my separation, I felt like I had separated from God. I pushed through. I took a hot bath. I went to the lake and walked around it. I had a long talk with God, and I reached out to a few of my Christian sisters, and they brought me back. By the evening hours, I felt like maybe my life was more manageable and not so lost. I told God that I need him, and I asked for his forgiveness for the way that I was thinking. And in my email, I had a job offer. It's more money than I've ever made. It's working from home, so it won't hurt my body. And I get to work into the community. And I get to help people make sure that they're following through for Medicaid and CHIP and other resources, which is my thing, you know. So I really feel like in the right timing, God does those things. It was like God saying, girl, I got you. And it starts in 2 weeks, so I'm going back to school, which I never really thought I was going to really do. Classes start tomorrow. I'll have 2 weeks to get that routine going, and then I'll start my new job. So I want to talk to you today about staying on the rock. It don't feel good. It don't feel like you're on the rock sometimes. It don't feel like there's an answer. But remind yourself, there's an answer. God's the answer. And he's there even when you don't feel like he's there. Just keep being faithful. Swim as hard as you got to swim. Don't look at the flowers. Don't look at the rafts. And if you do, that's the thing, though. When you do, because you probably will go after that flower. You probably do want to ride that raft one time. When you do, don't let it keep you down. You go right back to that rock and you tell God, I'm sorry and I love you and I need you. And you pick up and you keep going. And it's going to get to where then you're going to be like, ooh, there's a pretty flower. Sure is pretty. This rock sure is dirty, though. There's going to be a pretty flower that's going to come to you on that rock. There's going to be a raft that's going to come to you on that rock. So just remember that, to stay on the rock. Stay in his presence, even when you don't feel like it. Reach out to somebody if you're having those thoughts. We're here for you guys. We love you. I always write it out, and I think I have it all, God just takes over. So I don't even know where I'm at in my notes, but I know this. I know that I need God and Jesus. I know that I stand here right now. I never would have thought I would be this happy. I realized when I was going through that stuff, I had one thought of getting drunk. One thought. And I'll be honest, I've drank a beer or two or a mixed drink or two throughout my sobriety lately. But I've repented and been like, God, don't take me down that road, I don't want to drink to numb anything. And I don't think there's anything wrong with drinking moderately, but that's a whole nother thing with an addict.
Still working on that, but the thing is, I have learned that I don't want to be under the influence of anything. I really can say, I actually like me and my sane mind without drugs altering the way I feel.
Hallelujah.
I love the way it feels to feel love, to feel love. And then, and along with that comes that you do sometimes have to feel shame. You do sometimes have to feel sadness and pain. But now I'm better equipped because I can take a hot bath. I can call Caitlin or Renee or Wanda. I can get down on my knees and pray. I can fast. I can read the Bible. I can take a nap. So I just encourage you guys that if you're going through it, we're here for you. We love you. Kelly, you can put I had scriptures I was going to put up for you guys and everything. Kelly can, I'll give them to you guys if you want. There's some of the things that helped me remember. Jesus is our rock. He is the only way you're going to get through these things. I promise. Because I tried every other way. I still think sometimes, I'm like, maybe this will work. No, girl. Get back to Jesus. So, stay with him. Get deeper in him. And he's going to pull you through it. You can pull the music up just a little.